Thank you all so much for tuning in today. I'm really excited to dive into this incredible office hours, and I assume you all are excited as well. So thank you for showing up, taking the time to be here. First, a bit of background information on our esteemed expert. As the founder of the PR Bar and host of the Pitchin and Sippin Podcast, which is the best name ever, Lexie has helped countless companies and entrepreneurs gain accelerated success through the world of public relations, including winning Shark Tank brands and some of Inc. magazine's fastest growing companies in America. With more than 11 years of PR and marketing experience, serving most recently as a VP of PR and marketing of a high 8-figure industry disruptor, Lexie has been recognized as a top 20 in their 20s, a brilliant PR expert under 30, a top female entrepreneur to watch in 2020, and Trailblazer Women Leaders in 2021. Most importantly, however, her clients have been featured in outlets such as Forbes, Vogue, Oprah, Inc., Shark Tank, Entrepreneur Magazine, CNN, the LA Times, Shape Magazine, the Huffington Post, the Marie Forleo Podcast, Wired, and many, many more. Got to take a deep breath after that list of accomplishments. Clearly, she's a true expert in PR. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Lexie. We are so excited to learn from your expertise today. We know how valuable your time is, and we're so grateful for you. And by the way, as far as questions go, feel free to hold them to the end or drop them in the chat so you don't forget. And then Lexie has a couple places where she will address questions just so everyone's on the same page there. And feel free to take it away, Lexie.
Oh my gosh, I will never not get really uncomfortable and blush when someone's reading about me. So thank you for that. Let's see, can I please have the ability to share my screen?
Yes, the one thing we forgot to do during our prep. 1 second. Okay, you should be good to go now.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see if I can get this bad boy pulled up. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see this? Cool. Okay, I think we're good. We can hear me, we can see me. We'll get into this. I'm so excited to be here today and honored. I'm new to Dreamers and Doers and already pretty obsessed with this community. Let's dive in. So I'm Lexie. You just heard my press bio, technically, but to shorten that, I'm an organic growth and PR coach. I have a podcast and I'm a 2-time founder. My first company, my main company, is the PR Bar Inc. And in short, the PR Bar Inc. is an online coaching platform and resource hub built to help motivated entrepreneurs and companies expand their influence, impact, and revenue through relationship-driven marketing and PR. I have a podcast, as was mentioned. You know what? I don't have my chat box in view. Let me find that real quick, you guys. Okay. I have a podcast. It plays on all the places. There are transcripts available as well. But if you want to learn more about PR, this is a great place to do so. I interview members of the media, other PR professionals, and newsworthy founders on all things PR. I guess we don't really need to go into credentials. You heard a bunch. Hopefully at this point, you at least slightly believe that I do know how to do PR. So some fun facts about me. Wife, proud dog mom from the Pacific Northwest, specifically Portland. I heard someone else mention that they're originally from Portland. So represent. I was born and raised there. I now live in Southern California near Santa Barbara in a city called Ventura. I have many guilty pleasures in life, but wine, Domino's Pizza, books, Schitt's Creek, and anything true crime are very high and top of list. I did live abroad for a while, and when the world allows, I love to travel, and I'm a former student athlete and self-taught juggler. But enough about me. You guys are all here today, and you're about to massively level up. You're going to learn what I call the organic growth formula. And this is going to teach you how to grow your business with PR. So here we go. Here's the formula. The end. Just kidding. So no one should quite yet understand what this means because you don't have any context, but these letters actually do mean something. To understand the formula, though, we need more context, and thus we have some learning to do first. The very first thing we need to understand is what I mean when I say organic. When I say organic or organic growth, I'm referring to non-paid avenues. Simply put, this is growth that is achieved without ad spend. Organic growth can be achieved through a very specific form of organic marketing, otherwise called public relations. So that brings us to the next thing we need to have a clear understanding of before we can apply the organic growth formula to our business. We need to define what the heck public relations actually is. Today, you're going to learn the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, the how of PR. Now, I don't know everyone in this room. Some of you might literally be in PR, or you're thinking right now, I know what PR is, and you might. Others might go, I can just hop onto good old Google and find a definition, Lex. And if you go to Google, here are the definitions that you might find, but I'm not going to take the time to read these, and much love, I'm not going to take the time to ask you guys what you think PR is, because I actually need you to do me a favor. Forget all of that ish, okay? So instead, for the next 40 minutes, I'm hoping that I can help you redefine what PR is. And we're going to start by addressing the who and the what. Okay, these are the 6 relations or the target audiences or groups that make up the who and the what of PR. So what do each of these mean? The first group or relation that we look at in PR is public relations, like the word, but this is referring to your brand's relationship with the public and potential new customers. Second relation, media. Right? So your brand's relationship with the media. This can be more traditional forms of media or more emerging forms or roles like podcasts and influencers. Third, we have customers or clients. You can use those interchangeably depending on your business model, but this is referring to your brand's relationship with your pre-existing customers, and this is huge for reputation and referrals. Then we have industry. So your brand's relationship with others in your industry or other vendors. Again, really important for expert positioning, partnerships, and referrals. Then we have community relations, your brand's relationship with community, both virtual and physical. A couple different examples. Physical could be your local chamber of commerce. Physical might be your neighborhood. I know my neighborhood has a Facebook group that is very active and very entertaining. A virtual example is Dreamers and Doers, right? So this is a community. What is you and your brand's relationship with this community? And community relations is huge for brand awareness, networking, referrals, support, and engagement. And then the last relationship is investor relations. So this is your brand's relationship with your current or potential investors, if this is relevant for your company. So this is obviously important if you're looking to raise capital, you want to sell, or really just maintain stakeholder approval. There's one more kind of, I call it a bonus relations or an asterisk relations, and that's employee relations, your brand's relationship with current employees. And this can be a function that internal PR professionals deal with, especially at large companies, but typically HR takes this category, which is why I have it as a bonus relation, not one of the core 6. So when we understand the 6 relations, PR by definition then becomes the art of cultivating opportunities through strategic relationship building and maintenance with these 6 key stakeholders. Now we're going to dive into that statement and make it come to life a little bit. So I made an image that we're going to look at and build upon throughout this presentation, but here's where we're currently at. So far we know that PR is how we interact with these 6 different groups, right? Our who and the what, in order to create opportunities to ... achieve these benefits. So these are the why. This is why people do PR, because when you do PR successfully, a multitude of benefits can come from it, from boosting brand awareness to shaping public perception, growing your customer or client base, gaining credibility and authority, which is really important in getting people to actually buy, increasing revenue, and if this is relevant for you, it can help support an established company worth. So back to this image, right? We've been able to add a little bit more. So now we know PR is how you build and maintain relationships with these 6 key audiences to create opportunities to increase influence, impact, and revenue. What we haven't talked about yet is the where and the how, right? This little bracket over here. So this is the where and the how PR can be executed. Just to run through them real quick: events, sponsorships, brand collaborations and activations, community involvement, media placements, which asterisk is what typically people mostly just associate with PR, but notice it's one of many, public speaking, giving back, customer reward programs, influencer marketing, review and referral campaigns. These are all examples of different PR tactics and campaigns. So now we have a complete picture, right? PR is how we build and maintain relationships, the how being those tactics, with the 6 relations to create opportunities to increase our influence, impact, or revenue. Now, when I'm giving this talk, usually, this has become a very common question. Lexie, what's the difference between PR and marketing? Or that sounds a lot like marketing. So we're going to address that. We're going to address the relationship and the differences between marketing and PR. I usually like to kick this off by reading this statement. The truth is, you can't market without doing a little PR, and you can't do PR without a little marketing, because the end goals, selling products, services, and making people love a company, are too intertwined. However, very simply put, PR, as you guys now know, is the action or business of creating and developing positive relationships in order to create impact, influence, and revenue. Marketing, on the other hand, is the action or business of promoting and selling products or services. Now, because of these technical definitions, the relationship between the two can be illustrated as such: an umbrella. Okay, so I like to think of marketing as an umbrella. The goal of marketing, right, is to promote and sell. One way we can do that is through PR. So PR can be considered an organic marketing tactic. Thus, it's a stripe on the umbrella. So let's look at an example. Let's say our marketing campaign goal is to, simply put, sell more products. When deciding how we want to market, we choose a PR tactic. Pitch for a product gift guide. So through a PR lens, the goals would be to connect with new publics to increase sales. We also know that we're developing relationships with the media, and we're also going to be getting credibility being associated with the press. So in terms of the main why, the end objective for both marketing and PR is to sell product. However, remember that PR always has some sort of tie back to those 6 relations. When you start to really separate PR and marketing, it's common to see blurred lines. A great example of this is if you go to Google and you Google define what's the difference between marketing and PR, articles are going to be all over the place. It's hard, it's blurred. As we continue to progress and evolve as a society, they're getting more and more evolved. However, there are technical differences. There's usually only 3 I like to highlight. The first is metrics. So for example, when I oversaw the marketing and PR department at the last company I worked for prior to doing my own thing, my marketers tracked different metrics than my PR people. My marketers were looking at click-through rates and open rates in an email. My public relations team was looking at backlinks and domain authority. You don't need to know what all those mean, basically metrics. Second difference is marketing is 100% proactive, right? One goal, sell or promote product. PR can be, yes, proactive, but also reactive, because we're talking about relationships. So a great example of reactive PR is crisis communications. And then the third difference I like to highlight is your target audience. So in marketing, you have one target audience, your buyer, right? Sell or promote products. So we need our buyer. PR, you have 6 different groups, the 6 relations that we can be targeting. So all this to say, here's the takeaway on the relationship between the two. You really shouldn't or can't do one without the other. So it's really important to start thinking of PR as a marketing and overall business strategy. I'm going to take a sip of water, and if there's any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat as I clear my throat. All right, I think that means that we're good. I'm going to keep on. So we're going to go over some examples of what would qualify specifically as doing PR. I'm doing PR when I'm hosting an event to connect and engage with my local community in order to hopefully find new clients, which will increase my revenue. So there's a lot going on this page, but I'm going to break it down for you. And this is where I wish I was in person and had one of those little laser pointer things, but I'll do my best to try to guide your eyes. So first part of that, I'm doing PR when I'm hosting an event to engage and connect. When we think back to that graphic I showed, right? This is the how and the where. This is my relationship building tactic. Next, we're doing this tactic to engage with our local community and find new clients. So these are the two relations of the 6 that we're hitting. And we're doing this to increase our revenue. So that's our target objective, or our why. Another example, I'm doing PR when I'm pitching the media to land a press placement that will allow me to introduce my brand to new publics, which will increase brand awareness. Same breakdown, right? So first part, pitching the media to land a press placement. That's my relationship building tactic. That's my how and where. What are the two relations that we're touching on? The public and the media. Okay, so that's my who and what. And then why are we doing this? To increase our awareness. So that's the outcome, or the why. So we just reviewed the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, the how of PR. Let's summarize really quick, and then we're going to keep on keeping on. So simply put, public relations, right, is the art of cultivating opportunities through strategic relationship building and maintenance. The art of cultivating opportunities is referring to our tactics and our strategies, and then the through strategic relationship building is referring to the 6 relations. Now, knowing that definition, if you're ever presented with a question, which is one I get a lot, how do I know if or when my business needs PR? And if so, what type? There's one answer. It's every single person needs PR. It's just a matter of narrowing down where to focus first. And that leads us right back to the topic of this entire presentation, which is the organic growth formula, how you grow your business with PR. So that was all the context, all the learning that we needed to take place before we kind of understood all the letters that are about to be shown at you. But basically now we're going to talk about how you make money. Yay. Okay. Here's how. So I'm bringing back the equation you saw at the onset of the presentation. These are what those letters stand for. O is our objective, T are tactics, R is relations. This is what the formula means if we turn it into a sentence. We achieve our objective by executing tactics on our relations. Here is how we simply execute and complete that equation. Step 1 is to define our objective. And this sounds simple, but it's such a big piece of the puzzle to determine what type of PR we need to grow and which type of relationships to focus on. Once you have your objective, then you ask yourself, which of the 6 relations can have an effect on me achieving my objective? That is a really big part of this. I'm going to repeat it. Which of the 6 relations have an effect on me achieving my specific objective? The relations that we answer are where we focus first. So here's an example, right? I outlined that this business, it's a product-based business, and their objective is to increase online sales by 50%. That's their O. So what relations or which groups can have an effect on them achieving that? This is a scenario where 5 out of 6 really can. The public can, right? In terms of the public can become new customers who buy. Your industry can in terms of providing referrals or expert positioning. The media can because they're a gateway to the public. Again, they can also add in credibility, and credibility is a huge part of the buying process, Customers, right? Customers can refer you, customers can leave testimonials. Again, that lends itself into the buying process. And community, because you can find clients in community. Community can be used to network. Networking can lead to leads, et cetera, et cetera. So basically 5 of the 6 relations can help me achieve this objective. So the next step, right? You've outlined your objective. You decide the relations that have an effect on you achieving that objective. Now you have to figure out the how, the tactic. When selecting a tactic, start by picking 2 relations. So what you saw in pretty much every PR example I went over is that there are 2 audiences or 2 of those relations minimum being impacted. So this is one of the examples I shared earlier. And if you look, right, there are community and public are the 2 relations that are being affected. So we ask, what tactic can connect and activate our relations in order to achieve our objective? And as a reminder, right, here are all the different tactics. So I'm going to put this into real world life action. So it's more than words. Here's the formula, right? So we've identified that our goal is to generate awareness, new leads, and sales. We then choose that media and public are the relations we want to focus on. And one way we can connect media and the public is through press. So here's all the things that can happen. Tactic is up top. So press win. What happens? Well, we're featured as an online expert in your field in Entrepreneur Magazine. Lots of different things can come from that. First, hopefully the article is backlinking to your site, helping your SEO. So there's even long-term visibility at play here. The actual article itself, those who are reading it, you're introducing your brand to a whole new audience, entrepreneurs, readership. You're going to be really smart and feature the article on your site and in your bio. And that's going to help establish third-party credibility and authority, which once again, really play into the buying process. All of these things can lead to getting new leads, new customers, and new sales. So that's one example. Another example, let's say your goal is to generate highly qualified hot leads. So in order to do this, you identify you want to focus on industry and community, as these groups are much more targeted than the regular general public. You decide one easy way for you to do that is through a speaking engagement. Speaking gig, okay? So same little wheel here. You speak at a local business event or workshop. What are the things that happen? One, you receive pre-event. This is a perfect example. I'll use me, okay? I received pre-event promotion from my event host, Dreamers and Doers, right? They posted about this. I'm having an opportunity to introduce you guys to my brand. So you have that opportunity when you speak. You're being naturally positioned as a credible expert, right? Because you have the host backing you up. And this plays into which I'm sure you've heard of your know, like, and trust factor. And then hopefully that all generates super hot leads. Then you just need to follow and sign them up. So again, another example of a tactic that's really playing into those relations. So this is the organic growth formula. If you want a screenshot, take a picture of all the stuff I was just talking about. Here's what it comes down to. This is how we start to decide where to go first. You define your objective. You ask yourself which relations can have an effect on me achieving that objective, and then what tactics can connect those relations in order to achieve our objective. So that's the formula. We have more to learn. So this is like what I call your shake it off, like, woo, like we're gonna kind of pivot here for a second. If there's any questions, clarifying questions, I don't see any coming in, but feel free to drop it on. Otherwise, we're gonna keep learning. Learning is fun. Cool. That means I'm doing a great job and no one has questions. All right, so you guys just learned that PR is about much more than just press. However, I'm very aware that one of the most commonly associated forms of PR is media relations and press, traditional PR. So for the remainder of this presentation, that's what we're going to focus in on. Questions. This is one of the questions I promised to answer in this office hours. Should I outsource or keep it in-house? I just want to pull out a point of my background as to where this advice is coming from. I worked in agencies, I worked in-house. As I was in-house, I managed an outsourced agency and an in-house team, and now I'm my founder. So I've really seen every side of this industry, and I don't believe that there's one answer to this question. I think it really just depends on you and your company. However, here are some of the pros and cons to both. First, outsourcing. Some pros I like to highlight. Obviously, saving time of execution, right? You pay a PR firm, they should be executing for you. Also, one of the things you're paying for when you outsource is they should have contacts, right? You're paying for their immediate access to media contacts. Also, you have access to it, depending on the size of the agency you hire, there's a team of experts to help you be objective. It can be really hard to see what is newsworthy or be objective when it's your baby that you've built. I think we could probably all relate to that in this room. Cons to outsourcing, okay? So money, right? It can be expensive, and good PR firms really shouldn't. Low and minimum retainers are 3 months, although standard really should be minimum 6 months. So it's quite a capital investment. Non-owned assets and less control. What I mean by this is if things don't work out with this PR firm, let's say you sign on for a 6-month retainer, doesn't go great. By the time you end that contract, you're kind of back at square one because you never developed those media relationships and you never owned those assets in-house. And you have less control over the messaging since you're handing it off to someone outside. This process is runs a lot more smoother if you know your messaging to a fault. So you're a little bit more of a mature company, at least in knowing yourself, and not a guaranteed priority. So this depends on the agency, but if it's a large agency, who gets the most priority, most hours of the day? Those who are paying most. So it's just something that can happen. In-house, flip side, okay, pros of in-house. Whereas when you're outsourcing, the money's going out. This is an investment that stays in-house, and you're creating assets owned for life. So you're developing media relationships as a company. You're developing your press assets. You're developing your newsworthy angles. These are things that people can't take away from you. Through that, you're also maintaining more control and ownership over your story. You know you best. Cons, however, is it takes more time to execute. Right, you hire a PR firm, they're executing it for you. You don't hire a PR firm, someone on your team or you has to be the one to execute. Also, if you're just getting started, it can take some time to actually develop relationships. And this one, I've seen quite a lot. It's just a reality that it can be hard to be objective when it's you in your company. Now, pros and cons to both, like I said, just kind of depends on the age of your company and who you are. But let's say you decide you want to execute in-house. These are the ways you can do that. You as a founder are fully capable and able, if you make the decision, you can do your own PR. Or it can be you plus a current employee. If you have the budget, you can hire a new employee. I have clients that activate teams of interns. You can also work up to the point of building a full in-house team. There's a lot of different ways to work it. Just kind of depends on your budget and how much time you want to put into it. One question that I get asked a lot, I'd say it's one of the top 3 questions I get asked, is does it look bad for a company or a founder to do their own PR? And I've always had an opinion on that, but now this report came out that gave me a stat. So just so you know what you're looking at, Muck Rack is a PR software, and every year they produce a state of journalism report. They interview thousands of journalists and they come up with these reports that are basically standards across the industry. So when asked, what sources they find to be the most credible, the vast majority of journalists find that academic subject matter experts and CEOs are most credible, and significantly more journalists find PR professionals in-house to be more credible than agencies. Disclaimer, I'm not saying I agree with that statement. I'm not saying PR agencies are bad. I worked in them. They're great. I just thought this was an interesting stat that just came out that kind of answers that question. So simply put, no, it doesn't look bad to do your own PR. Okay, so cool, Lexie, I'm on board. I want to do my own PR. How do I do my own PR? There's really 4 ways to learn. I'm a believer that if you put in the time and you're capable, pretty much anyone can Google their way into a PhD these days on Google. Lots of free information out there. Another way is go to college, go to university, right? I did that. I don't think you need to with PR. It's not like being a lawyer or a doctor. I'm not knocking me or my own industry, but I personally don't believe you need that. That little sign icon is representative of, there are so many freebies, like online self-guided courses. 2020 hit. I feel like the resources out there are more than ever. So if you're someone who likes to self-guide yourself, Muckrack, Cision, they have tons of free resources out there. And then the final option is you can get someone to help you, such as a mentor or coach, which I won't go into this, but FYI, that's where I fall on the spectrum. That's what I do. Okay, so you decide that you want to do your own PR. Where do you begin, right? And again, we're talking traditional PR. If I can have everyone walk away with one thing, it's PR is so much more than press. But let's say you want to specifically do your own press. Where do you begin? There are 5 high-level steps. If you want to get into specifics, write down the questions and we absolutely can. But high-level step 1 is you need to get press ready. So this is assembling your assets. This is getting your photos in order, your press bios, deciding if you want a media kit, if getting your website up to snuff, getting your social media channels set up. So getting things ready and presentable for press. Once you've done that, step 2 is to build your lists. And in this case, we're referring to media lists. So what outlets do you want to target? What podcasts do you want to be on? And I'll give you a little expander. I'll get into this a little bit more in a second, but high level, build your lists. Step 3, define your newsworthy angles. One new note here is always remember that one angle, the newsworthiness of it will depend on the outlet. So when you're thinking of angles, think of it per outlet. What would be newsworthy to this outlet? And then draft your pitch, comment on pitches. Different pitches will look different based on the type of medium you're pitching. So TV versus digital versus print versus, podcasts, they all look a little bit different. And the type of story you're going after also has different nuances. So a product pitch looks different than, pitching someone for an expert in topic. So there's a lot that's a whole nother topic. Again, if you have questions around specifics, we can get into that at the end. And then step 5 is to pitch it good. On the topic of media lists, I wanted to give you guys a little preview of what leveling up would look like. You've already done a lot of leveling up today, but this would be what I call leveling up 2.0. And that would be really understanding that different press opportunities do different things for your business. And I really put it into 3 main categories. So here are some examples of what I mean. We're going to start bottom right. One thing that can happen from a type of press placement is what I call word of mouth driver. An example of this is your company gets featured in a local business journal, let's say on their fastest growing private companies. Will this press opportunity immediately generate revenue? Maybe, debatable, but what will happen is people in the community or the readership of that business journal will see your company and people will talk about it, right? So that's your classic word of mouth driver. Bottom left, another type of ROI from press is what we call a credibility or a door opener. great example of this are the Forbes of the world. Believe it or not, sometimes getting in Forbes doesn't produce revenue, but what it will do is allow you to say that you were in Forbes, and there's credibility that comes with that. And when you're seen as credible, more doors are opened. And then the third category is immediate revenue generators. And an example of this is, let's say you're a product-based, let's say you're a pencil company, and you land your pencil in a gift guide online. People can see the gift guide and immediately click to purchase. So that press placement is immediately generating revenue. The reason there are question marks there is what will generate revenue for your company looks different from every other company. A classic example here, I don't know if anyone's heard of the outlet Birdie, but I had 2 product clients, both land product gift guide features in Birdie. One legitimately sold out. One didn't sell a single thing. The whys into that, we could, again, that's a whole nother topic, but that's why there's question marks. So there isn't one end all be all outlet that produces revenue for every single business. Okay. So we're wrapping up. I just want to kind of recap. I just threw a lot at you guys today, but here's what you learned, right? You learned what PR is, and that it's so much more than press. We talked about the relationships of PR. We talked about the relationship between PR and marketing. You learned a very simple formula about how to decide where to start focusing your efforts. You also learned the different market options for pursuing PR, right? Outsourcing versus in-house versus doing it yourself. You also learned all the different options for how you can learn to DIY PR. We talked about the high-level process of landing press. So that was the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you learned that there are 3 types of ROI that can come from press. So now we will turn to questions if there are any. And I will stop sharing. Okay, I think I'm good. Any questions? Can be random PR questions as well. How do you effectively pitch the media? Okay, so Michelle, I'm either going to ask you to, I have some follow-up questions for you.
Okay.
Let me find you on the screen.
Okay.
Hi, perfect. First, just so I can give you a specific example, what's your company and what type of media are you pitching?
Okay. So my company is supply chain services for startups. And let's say I'm pitching somebody like I would love to get into like Inc. magazine.
Okay.
Because my clients read that magazine as well as I'm a startup, right? So that's kind of like the perfect target for me. So let's say I find the name of a reporter for Inc. and I have a good article idea, or I have a couple different article ideas. Do I just cold email them? Like, how do I make that connection? If they say no to one, do I send them 5 more ideas? Like, how does that step in the process for me is very fuzzy.
Yeah. So for first answer, which is not a fun one, there's no black or white answer to this. So based on who you're speaking to in the PR industry, we might have different suggestions. Here would be mine. There are 2, you absolutely can cold pitch a reporter. Per life, if you already have a relationship with them, will it be easier? Of course. So you can think of, if there's someone in your beat, a beat is a topic that you anticipate writing about you for the long haul, like more than just once, that's a situation where I say play the long game. Start by creating a relationship. Don't necessarily lead with a pitch, maybe even wait a quarter before you ever send them a pitch. There's a lot of different ways you can start to create relationships. A classic one that is all over Google is just, commenting on a piece of an article, following them on Twitter. There's a lot of ways. Think of it like networking. If the long game isn't the end game, it's about really getting hyper really researching and really, really, really understanding beat of the reporter, the personality of the reporter, making sure your angle is relevant to Inc. magazine, to their readership, that it's timely. And then in terms of what you put in the body of the pitch, since we're talking digital, it's going to be short, 200 words or less. And the summary is you need to be telling them why this is relevant to their readership. The biggest mistake I see people making in pitching, well, there's a lot, but is using marketing speak, which often comes around to not being objective, and forgetting the whole point of the writer's job. The writer's job is to get people to read the magazine so the magazine makes money, because the magazine is a business. So how is what you're pitching them going to draw in readership and serve their readers? So a lot of answers to that. There's 101 pitch templates out there in the world, but it really does come down to answering that question. How is this relevant to them? How is this going to serve them?
Okay. No, that's really helpful, Lexie. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions? We can brainstorm specifics for a company too, if anyone wants to, or not. Beyond Haro. Okay. Are there other options, outlets beyond Haro and pitching and being in D&D to be a source for articles and features? Great question. First off, shout out to D&D. You guys are, of all the networking communities I've ever been a part of, I have never seen one with this many visibility opportunities. So
thank you so much. That means a lot.
I mean it. I'm like gold mine, like all my clients go apply now. Haro, for anyone who doesn't know, it stands for Help a Reporter Out. It's a free resource. I have an article on Haro on my site if you want to go into the nuances of it. It's about 80% garbage, 20% easy PR opportunities. There are listservs like Haro. One is called Quoted, QWOTED. All of these listservs are great for easy, what I call like backlink wins, like quick mentions here, quick mentions there. Once in a while, something really great will come out of it. But the biggest PR wins are generally secured through being proactive and really tuned into like the editorial calendar of an outlet or what's really timely in the media. There are also easy win opportunities based on where you're located. Voyage LA is a company, or Shout Out LA, or and sorry, I'm saying LA because that's where I am, but it varies per city. There's like Voyage Phoenix, Voyage New York, Shout Out LA, Shout Out New York. Those are all like easy pitch wins. Pretty much anyone can be on those sites. What are some other ones? You can self-publish if you want to get into the byline games. I just posted yesterday on my Instagram 5 places you can get self-published today. Thrive Global is one of them. Medium's one of them. If you're on Haro, you'll see the word Authority Magazine a lot, which is basically Medium. So there's a ton out there. Hopefully I listed at least one you didn't already know. What's the word? Haro. Yeah, so Haro is Help a Reporter. I'll put it in the chat, .com, helpareporter.com. Yeah, and the other one was Quoted. There's Help a Reporter also has Twitter. There's a fair amount of, there's podcast lists similar to Haro. It really kind of depends what form of medium you're going after, what type of traditional press. Yeah, okay, let's see. I think, cool. Any other questions? Any tips to promote your virtual or IRL events? Yes, lots. Depends on, I guess, Michelle, do you want to tell me what type of company you have and maybe the type of events you host? So I can give a specific answer rather than general ones.
Sure. And Leanne, we aren't dressed alike today. I just want to make that point.
Oh, good.
So my tech startup focuses on Black, Latinx, and Indigenous women who are experienced scientists, engineers, and technology professionals.
Okay.
So I usually host two types of events, virtual events. One is specifically for women of color in STEM, and it's a professional development training that's a week long. Leon spoke at it earlier this year. Been doing that for 5 years. And then last year, I kicked off my first diversity, equity, and inclusion virtual summit, and I'll be doing another one of those in October of this year.
Amazing. So I'm going to rattle off a fair amount, and some of these I'm sure you do. First and foremost, there are tons of free event calendars and free event listing services. Virtually, Eventbrite's great. There's ones per industry too, but Eventbrite's a good example of a general one. If it's an IRL event that's in your local community, look up your local media outlets, like, the LA Times for me. They have free calendar postings where you can submit your events. I think at one point in LA, I had a list of about 40 different outlets that allow you to submit to their calendar of events. So that's a great place. Communities like D&D, going in and promoting on their Facebook groups, on their Slack channels. I Fund Woman, for example, I don't know, this just coming to mind, is one that has a specific Slack channel and section for you to promote your community events. I have an event tomorrow. I promote a lot in there, and I always get people who sign up through there. Social media, you can go after press, you can go after, depending on the event and the type of event, you can also get features on events. Getting features on events usually is like press releases is a whole nother topic, but one of the times press releases actually do help are in event promotion. And then obviously activating your current audience. You can set up referral campaigns. You can email it to your email marketing. There's a ton of free resources, but hopefully at least some of those calendar listings are a new idea for some people on the call.
That helped. I have one other follow-up question to something. It was a question I have specifically about utilizing like print magazines, or even if they're virtual, niche specific. And you brought up the editorial calendar, so we can still like write our own blogs and submit them to publications to see if they'll pick them up, so we get a byline or something in those publications. Okay.
Yeah. So, and just to speak to that a little bit more clearly, the process of landing a thought leadership piece, like a byline, for example, is different than pitching for an outlet to cover you. So if I want Inc. to feature me, that pitch process looks different than me submitting to be a contributor. Both are great. They serve different purposes. Any other questions? Dreamy Human Hannah, it looks like I answered all the things.
Yes. Thank you so much. This was incredible. Very information packed, like more.
Sorry.
No, in the best way. I had no idea that there was just like so many different avenues of PR. So thank you so much for pouring into the collective and just investing your time in teaching us all the things. We are so grateful. The chat is just blowing up with thanks and how incredible this was. I couldn't agree more. And thank you everyone for showing up and asking such great questions, and just for making Dreamers and Doers as dreamy as it is. It was so amazing spending this hour with everyone, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the next one.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.